Hi there and welcome to this video, which is all about the challenges of being a neurodivergent parent over the summer months, perhaps when your kids are also neurodivergent too. If you are new to me and my work, my name's Nicola. I'm a yoga teacher, yoga therapist. I'm also autistic and ADHD myself. And this is quite new for me to be sharing a little bit about my experience as a parent. I have two neurodivergent children. So my eldest is dyspraxic, autistic and ADHD, and my youngest is ADHD and autistic too. My husband is also autistic and ADHD, so we are a full neurospicy household, although we all are very much individual. Of course, there's a lot of difference within the autistic and ADHD community. And this definitely creates some tension points in our house from time to time. So I thought I would share a little bit about what I find are the challenges, particularly over the summer months. And also I thought I'd share just a few things that I have kind of established over the years. My eldest is 13, so I'm 13 years into it now. I definitely don't have all the answers, so I would really welcome comments below with suggestions. But sharing is always helpful, isn't it? So first of all, I guess the biggest challenge is that with the kids off, we're just spending more time together. And I love my kids, but that's a lot of time together. And when you're spending so much time together, and one of my key things that I need is alone time, that can make it really tricky. That's a real conflict point, really. So there is always that little bit of time in those first couple of weeks where there tends to be a few clashes. So over the years, I've kind of learned that we need to navigate those first couple of weeks a bit differently. Now, I'm self-employed, teaching yoga, etc. So, and part of the reason for that is to be flexible with family life. But being flexible can mean that the boundaries are blurred, I generally work down here, which is a little garden room, if you like, at the bottom of my garden, and a little bit out in the community, mostly online. So there is a bit of separation from home life, but it's just in the garden. I mean, I can be teaching yoga and the kids are playing about with stuff in the garden, which is fun. So there is almost like a re-establishing of boundaries that has to take place. Both myself, I have to really think, okay, how is this going to work? And each summer's a little bit different because, of course, the kids are different. So yeah, spending more time together and just finding where those boundaries are, particularly as I work from home and I'm self-employed. So just trying to figure out how things are going to work. Big issue. The other thing is about balancing my needs with their needs. Of course, my husband too, but as he's still in employment, he's less flexible, and so he doesn't spend quite as much time with the children as I do. So, for example, sensory issues, for the kids, I think in a way increase because with school, there's still sensory issues, but it's a known. We know what it's like with the uniform. It's the same uniform every day. We know what adjustments to make. It's fine. But then as soon as we go into the summertime, there's a whole, the kind of structure is gone. So it's less predictable, if you like. Things like water play might create some sensory issues. Bare feet might create some sensory issues. Lack of socks. The heat, all of those things can be quite overwhelming for my kids. One of them is particularly sensitive to texture. So that, coupled with the changes to the routine, can unsettle the kids a little bit. So their need for co-regulation and support with emotional regulation can increase. And because they're around you all the time, there's a greater demand on you, whereas at school, perhaps they are holding it together a lot of the time, and you're not there. So yeah, that can create an extra emotional demand for me. And then another thing that I thought about is, both of my kids have their special interests, which are quite narrow and specific, which means kind of, and I don't like this phrase, but entertaining them, which I don't think is my job, or yeah, I've got feelings about that phrase. But that idea of them being entertained can be really tricky because there's only very few things that they're actually interested in. And because they also both have this ADHD element where they crave novelty, if you've got a special interest but you crave novelty, then you need something different. But basically they need something different that's also within their very narrow interest, which is really difficult. And often their special interests can clash. You know, one of them likes to get completely immersed in fantasy novel, a very specific type of fantasy novels, whereas the other one wants to get involved in his football interest, usually acting it out. There's a lot of high-pitched noise that goes on when he gets into it. So those two can conflict a little bit. So there's this kind of conflict of interest, but also the conflict of need between not being bored but wanting to stay in a special interest. So it can be really tricky. And there's usually, and I used to call it witching hour, because there was usually like this point in the afternoon where they're both a little bit tired, they're perhaps a little bit bored, but they don't want to leave the safety of their special interest. It's not quite yet time for screens, and we have a very specific routine with screens, which we'll talk about in a minute. And they don't quite know what to do with themselves. So that's always a challenge. So coming to screens then, it can be really tempting, and I absolutely am not knocking screen time at all. I actually think it's a real need, particularly for neurodivergent parents and children, because screen time can be a real source of interest and regulation for my kids. But I also recognise that if they have too much of it, then that impacts negatively on their behaviour later. And of course, there's so much research into this. I kind of, you can almost feel when that tipping point is. So we have a very specific and set amount of screen time. We use a visual timer, and that seems to help. But, you know, there can be this challenge of them craving more, wanting more, asking more. So that's another issue. And of course, things do get a little bit lax over the summer, don't they? So they're the kind of specific challenges that I think, are the biggest for me. And the things that we as a family have sort of come to are having very set and specific routines at the beginning and the tail end of the day for the children, knowing right off the bat, as soon as the summer holiday starts, exactly what's expected each day in terms of like their own self-care. Just basic things really, like, okay, you will be washed and dressed, etc. by this point most of the time, apart from maybe, I don't know, at the weekend or when we're here, we'll have a more relaxed morning. Literally planning in those more relaxed mornings rather than just letting it be a free-for-all. My kids really don't function well if they don't know what's happening. So just planning out each week, each day, so everyone knows what's happening. Sticking to that bedtime routine as much as possible. Even when it's a late night, the same things happen so that they've got that safety of knowing, of being able to wind down, which can be a tricky thing. We often have, we still do bedtime stories, we might do a massage. It's quite convoluted, but it just helps them to wind down, and that gives them safety, gives us safety. The use of timers, like I've said, with screen time is really helpful, but any kind of activity where there's a risk of one of us getting into a hyper focus and then forgetting our bodily needs, we tend to use timers, because when it goes off, it's a chance. We all know it's like, okay, check in with my body time. Do I need to eat, drink, pee, rest? Do I need to get outside? All of those things. Do I need to check in with somebody? Do I need a hug? All of those things are really helpful with the timer. And another thing that we do is arrange play dates with other neurodivergent families, which is so good because it gets me a bit of chat time with other neurodivergent parents as well. We've not got a huge amount of neurodivergent friends, but those that we do, I really value the time that we spend with them. It gives the kids a chance to be with other kids that kind of operate in a similar way. And then the other thing that we do right at the beginning of the summer holiday is we go to, there's a local shop where they do generally sell what I think is a bit of tat, but things like fiddle toys, outside games, bubbles, craft activities, books. Now, not all of this is within special interest for my kids, but we go there with the intention to get some things that they can use in those moments where they feel bored and I'm not available, or their sibling isn't available, there's nobody available, and they want something to kind of do, basically. That's worked really well, actually, the last couple of years. We might have a top-up trip partway through, and I guess it just gives me a break, really. It's like having an extra little thing there just to lean on when they need that kind of, not entertainment, but just something to keep them occupied for a little bit, whilst I might, take a pause to be alone. And actually, it really means that when we do come together to spend time together, that kind of we're more present with each other and we're more able to enjoy it, rather than feeling maybe resentful or like our nervous systems are not quite ready for that interaction. So I hope that's of use. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear what your challenges are if you're a neurodivergent parent. What strategies do you use at home? As I say, I've not got all the answers. This is just me sharing my thoughts. And yeah, if you've got any comments on this, I'd love to hear them. As always, if you've enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up. Consider sharing it with anybody else that might benefit. And if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do. One kind of final thing to say is that what's really important if you're a neurodivergent parent is to think about how your regulation is important. Because if I'm not regulated, if I haven't done some of my routines, if you like, or some of my practices, and I can't do all of the things I would normally do over the summer, there's just not the space. But those key things that I've learned to do from the world of yoga and other modalities, then I'm not in a place where I can hold or be there for my children when they're in, if they're dysregulated or whatever. So your kids are important, of course they are, but you are really important to your children, and your needs are really, really at the centre of this. So having little things that you can do for you over the summer to top up your needs is really important. And if you want more support with this, then head over to my website, sign up to the mailing list. I've got lots of different free resources. I've also got a membership which is specifically for neurodivergent people, that offers therapeutic yoga and other wellness tools. So that might be of interest. But otherwise, just have a little think about what you want, what you need over the summer, and see if there are little ways that you can get it. And it might be asking for support from family and friends. Okay, take care for now. As I said, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.